Good morning. You're listening to the BLAINESWORLD Show, heard each Wednesday here on the new WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at WPVM's Facebook page, and you can listen online at WPVMFM.org. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in the Asheville area. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my first guest, and he is Holiday, and the pronunciation of the last name?
Childress.
Childress. Welcome aboard, Holiday.
Thank you.
And Holiday, you can also wave to all your fans and friends on Facebook. And I think if all goes well, we want to be on Facebook's, the radio station's Facebook page, and also my Facebook page. And I should mention that Holiday, Childress.
Childress.
Gotcha. Is I love the title you sent me, Holiday, is a groomsmith. You're also a talented musician. But how did you come up with the title of groomsmith?
I actually didn't come up with that title. I was working with a branding agency here in town, which I highly recommend. They're Atlas Branding Agency. And I'm not technically a barber, and I'm a cosmetologist by my degree. But I was doing I'm still doing mobile barbering business for weddings, and they suggested that I have something that was kind of a little bit more of a specific and unique to my brand name. So they came up with Gentleman Groomsmith, and so that's kind of what I go with. I could have never come up with that for myself, but it's nice to work with somebody that sees you from the outside and can do that.
And I just love it because, again, I think you're the first person that I've met who's a groomsmith. You know, it's just kind of cool. And you also say you're a gentleman's groomer, musician, professional hair colorist, and unisex hairdresser. The question I always wonder when I meet people for the first time on the air is, how did you get into this? Like, when you were a little kid, where'd you grow up?
I was born on an Air Force base in Valdosta, Georgia, and then we moved to a little town called Childress in England, about 40 minutes outside of Cambridge, and we lived on Air Force bases in and around that area during the 70s, and my sister was born there. We moved back to the States when I was 7. My dad's a fighter pilot, and he also flew for Eastern Airlines in the 80s, so shortly after that we moved to Atlanta because Hartsfield Airport was the big airport in that area at the time, or still is, of course. So I grew up my teenage years in Atlanta, and I spent my formative early years in England, and then moved to Asheville in '95.
And so how'd you get into cutting hair?
It was, I was like trying to come up with a day job idea. And there was nursing and hairdressing, basically. And I chose hairdressing because I could do it and still work in the restaurants at night to support my family. So it was just, I've been a musician and an entertainer for a long time and had kind of a nighttime schedule. And this was the way that I could move to having a daytime schedule but still have something that fit my personality.
So the music came before the hair cutting?
Yes, music came. I gave up baseball to start playing music when I was 11.
Okay, and so when you were 11, what was the first instrument you started playing?
First instrument that was put into my hands was a ukulele when I was in 4th grade, and it felt really comfortable, but I didn't think about guitar until later in 6th grade when my drummer, who's still my good friend and drummer in the Goodies, approached me in 6th grade, and he told me that he needed a member for his band, and if I would be in the band and what I wanted to play. And I said, well, drums or sing. And he said, sorry, those 2 positions are filled, so you're going to play guitar. And I said, okay, whatever it takes to be in a rock band. And so I started playing the guitar, and it all went from there.
And how old were you then?
I was, let's see, how old are you when you're in 6th grade? I was 11 or 12, something like that.
Because I always thought it would be a cool idea, Holiday, is that if we had a video of the first performance,
oh, sure.
What did anybody ever take a video then?
I can tell you exactly what our first performance was. It was our first rehearsal. It was me and my drummer, Mike, with he had a lot of different paint and garbage cans and a turntable, and he played Kiss Alive, which I had never heard, but he knew it back and forth. So he started the record, and my guitar at the time was something that my granddad made me because I loved the styles of the guitars that Def Leppard were playing at the time. So my granddad made out of plywood a stringless replica of this Gibson Explorer type looking guitar. And I got up on the bar that was in the basement, and we played Kiss, and I started smashing the guitar. I'd never seen that done, but it just felt natural. So I started smashing the guitar on the bar and wrecking things because I was so excited. And my drummer, Mike, he went and took the needle off the record player, and he was like, "Junior," and he's called me Junior to this day. He's like, "Junior, calm down, settle down, man. You're wrecking stuff." I was like, "Yeah, but man, isn't it cool?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's cool, but you gotta pace yourself here." So that was our first concert. It was in front of nobody, but it was highly theatrical.
But wouldn't that be great, Holiday? Keep this in the back of your mind for a fundraiser somewhere down the road.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to do this to get everybody to do their first performance of something.
Right.
So you could be playing Kiss or something like that. Did you ever wreck anything?
Did I wreck anything?
You were saying you were banging stuff around.
Yeah, well, I had an alter ego called Dr. Zap, and I would spike my hair straight up with my hands by rubbing my hair really vigorously in circles. And Mike still has a sword collection to this day, but he had a machete for some reason down in the basement. And so I would stab the ceiling with the machete, and his parents really had a hard time with me at first, but they, everything got worked out as I, got a little more under control, I guess.
But you never did you ever crush a guitar, or you ever?
I never. No, I mean, there's been some guitar accidents, but not from me intentionally doing it. Just like accidents happen when you're on stage and stuff. So.
Well, since we're on the performing kick, let's talk a little bit more about that. So, you started playing when you were in 6th grade. You've been playing ever since.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of music do you play?
Back then, it was rock music, specifically music by like Van Halen, Guns N' Roses, and then eventually we got into The Cure and Jane's Addiction and the Pixies and the alternative stuff. And
Any Turtles?
Any Turtles? No. I mean, I love classic rock, and I go back in time and get a lot of inspiration for sure.
Okay, I contend arguably the greatest rock group of all time.
I agree with you. I think that's a great statement.
But you haven't. So you're not typically classic rock, or that's even before classic rock. So your stuff was more, I guess. How would you describe it?
Whatever was getting us off at 11 and 12 and 13. As we got older and into our teenage years, and then of course in the early 90s when all that hair metal stuff died out and grunge came on the scene, I wanted to do something different. I didn't know what it was, but I found it, and I consider myself finding my voice when I founded the Goodies in 1993, and I was about 21. And that's when I grew my handlebar mustache, and I said, "Guys, we should dress up in suits, like the old blues guys did." And I took inspiration from the movie Cabaret with Joel Grey and Tom Waits, and The Nightmare Before Christmas had just come out, and that was really inspiring to me. So just kind of put those things together and started writing songs in that vein. You were asking me for a sample. I can play something off my iPhone if you want to hear a little taste of
Well,
something.
if it comes up, sure. Or
Okay.
as you can look for it.
We can even do it later. I mean,
Okay, no, you can. Do you have it handy?
sure.
Okay, cool.
You can do anything with an iPhone.
Okay, isn't it amazing?
Let's
But
see.
Now this is Holiday. This is a sample of you relatively currently.
This is something we recorded back in the early 2000s, but
Okay.
it's a good representation of the Goodies, of the style where I found my voice.
And so how would you describe the style?
Like a kind of a vaudeville rock music, so to speak. It's well, here we go. So as you can tell, it's kind of that old world, like, this is a song about a bordello in Paris in the 1930s. We'll get into some vocals here in a second.
It's a lot of fun though too. I'm finding
yeah.
it.
Time I met Madame de Velia, I knew I was cursed.
Is that you on vocals?
Yes, yeah. So that's a little taste.
I love it.
Thank you.
But it's just fun though.
Fun.
You know, it's kind of a little bit different. You know, you don't typically hear that. So is that what you play?
That's a goodie show, and we play usually once a year. We haven't played in a couple of years, just because we taken a break, I guess, or just hasn't come together. But we're not like, we didn't quit. We never quit. We just play when we want to play.
Well, one of the cool things about you, Holiday, is that I also got to hear your music fairly recently. That it really was a pleasant surprise. Was that you did music for one of Crutchfield's, John Crutchfield's shows? Talk about that. What was that?
John helped me on my record, Mind the Gap, playing drums. And we had always talked about doing some kind of music together. And finally, we were on a family trip at the beach. And he said, I don't know if you have time or not, but I'm ready to go on this production. And I'd love it if you played some, came up with some music. So it was about the easiest musical I've ever done. John is incredibly talented, and he had his stuff really together super well. So it took us no time at all to come up with these songs. We recorded it on an iPhone with, a guitar. So it was super simple, and the play was a lot of fun.
Well, who wrote the music? Did the two of you write it?
The two of us wrote it. He would sing some of his lines. He had all of his lyrics done, and then I just he said, this is going to be a campy 60s type of feel, and go for it. And so he sang a little bit, and I love collaborating, and music and lyrics are really intuitive for me. So I forgot how intuitive they were, because I haven't really picked up a guitar in a couple of years up to that point. But it all came back just like riding a bike, and working with John. When you're working with somebody who's that talented, it makes things super fast and super easy. So
Mention the play again. The name of it. I'm trying to see.
My Crazy, My Love.
That was it. And it was a play just recently done at the BB Theater, and it was so cool because it was just a play, but then it was. I think he described a play with music.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I thought it was really clever. You had each of the main characters. I don't know how many there were, but each would break out in song.
Sure, it was
And
great.
what was fun about it is each was completely different.
I loved it. The whole thing was a lot of fun. That's my favorite thing, I think, is collaborating. When I'm writing songs, I kind of like to be alone for some reason, because it's easier that way, and I can, channel stuff and get in my own head and act crazy in front of nobody except for myself, which is nice. But then if it's somebody else's thing, I don't know. I really like playing the collaborator or the backup guy or the encourager or the producer. I like to be those things. And that's what I enjoy in hairdressing too, is helping people feel like the best versions of themselves. It makes me feel good.
Well, didn't you also do John's other show? Did you do the music for that?
Which
too?
one?
Was it the German one? Were you involved in that one?
I did not. No,
you didn't do that.
Mm-mm.
Okay. But have you done music for other shows?
I did. I wrote the music for MILF, the musical.
Okay, that was the one.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that.
Did you see that one?
Yeah, loved it.
Okay,
It
good.
just completely caught me off guard. You wrote all the music?
I did, yeah. Lucia wrote the lyrics, but she's not a songwriter, so I had a much bigger job in that, in as far as creating repetition, choruses, melodies, rhymes, things like that. So that was fun, and the funnest thing about that was really seeing my craft and not just because it's easy when you're doing writing to think that it's just inspired and it's art or something, but you often don't see that it's a craft until you're working on somebody else's stuff, especially if you're starting to break it down and make it into something that is that does have those components of repetition and choruses and breaks and bridges. So that was a really good experience for me to see. Oh, it's not just this inspiration that's happening that I can't control. It's like I actually have a craft that and I could see it for the first time. And so that was that brought a smile to my face for sure. I really enjoyed that process.
Well, even as you describe it, it brings a smile to my face because
Oh.
it just, completely caught me off guard, the whole concept of it. And
Yeah.
what a great Tracy Johnson Crum and, the rest of the people. Such a great cast.
How
in it.
could I say no to MILF, the music?
Has that ever been done again?
No, it hasn't, no.
But definitely needs to be done again, I think.
think so.
It just has legs to it. Well, you mentioned, so the songwriting aspect of what you do. So do you also write lyrics too?
Absolutely.
Do you have a preference in terms of the writing? Do you like doing both?
I like the music comes first for me, and then the lyrics, or I have an idea for what the song is going to be about. That's usually what happens. I'll be like, I'm going to write a song about this, and then so I'm like, what does that sound like? And then I start making the atmosphere with the music, and then the images come to mind, and then I kind of go from there. There's also a technique that Mick Jagger has talked about called he does vowel movements. So he just kind of blah, 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 whatever. And then he figures out what he was saying later. And that works real well.
Ballpark, how many songs have you written?
Gosh, I'm not sure. Not probably as much as you would think for a guy that's my age, but I tend to just kind of I'd rather have stuff that I really think is good than just a whole bunch of stuff that's okay. So I've probably written more ideas than I put out there. But if you include all the songs I wrote when I was 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, that I wouldn't really want anybody to hear, I've written a lot. I don't know. I
Just a lot.
50,
Yeah.
50s, 60.
Is that something you do on an active basis? Like, do you wake up in the morning and sometimes say, I have a song I want to write?
Absolutely not. No, no. The thing I like about music is that it's portable, and I have a 3-year-old, and I have a 13-year-old, and 19-year-old, and a work schedule, and a marriage, and everything just takes up so many little slices of the pie in my day. So one thing I love about music as an art form is it's something I can do in the car. I can listen, I can think, I can do it. It's in my head on the go, so it's incredibly portable. Whereas if I was a visual artist of some kind, I would have to go to a place and do it, and I just can't. I don't have that luxury. So music is a great friend to me because I can work on things in my own head mobily. And so it's my favorite way to express myself, I think.
Your children, how receptive are they to your music?
I'm just dad, they're receptive. Well, they love it actually. I don't play a ton around the house, sing and play songs to them and stuff. I do somewhat. But my son drew my album cover on my album Mind the Gap.
How cool is that? He's
He's an artist, and he drew that with a pencil and some charcoal or something. I think it looks so cool, and he plays that he play a lot of those songs on a regular basis, and that makes me feel really good.
Do you
for
have a
sure.
family sing along?
No, we don't. I've thought about doing the Von Trapp thing,
Oh, I love it.
but I haven't done that. I didn't grow up in a musical family. If I had of, then I would probably do that. But I didn't grow up singing songs around the fireplace or anything like that. So I'm not used to. I'd have to really make an effort to make that happen.
Do they come see you in performance?
Yes.
Yes. That's-
My 3-year-old has not, but she. I pick up my guitar. She likes the one with the whammy bar. You know what a whammy bar is?
Yeah.
So she's like, "Daddy, I want to play with the whammy." And so I pick up my guitar with the whammy bar, and I will just strum a chord, and she'll just make the vibrato sound with the whammy bar, and she thinks that's really cool.
One of the cool things about your life, at least it seems to me, is that you probably don't get bored very easily, do you?
I don't know.
No, it just seems.
I guess I can't answer that.
Well, no, it just seems you're doing so many different things almost simultaneously that there's not much time to be bored.
I spent a lot of time alone as a kid. When we were in England, I had my own room upstairs in this old place above a butcher shop in this little village, and I blame that for my ability to be alone and be entertained. So I really like being alone to create, and if I give myself that 30 or 45 minutes of uncomfortable, how do I get used to this alone time feeling, then I will start coming up with stuff just naturally, because my brain just works that way.
And that's sort of the point I was trying to make, that sometimes when my daughter was younger, she'd say she was bored, and I said, how can you be bored? Like there's so many things to do.
I agree.
And just like you, it's going to be songwriting, or it's going to be cutting hair, or it's going to be being with the kids, or whatever. It just seems you have enough to keep you busy for the next 3 years, let alone.
I am very busy, that's for sure, yeah. I just try and keep it scheduled and organized, and the best that I can, because it's not natural for me. My natural state is one of daydreaming and laziness, and I've had to really work hard to be organized and keep my life structured, so to speak. And so it helps a lot when, like, my wife is super organized and structured. And she does the file cabinet. And, I'm not like a space cadet necessarily, but you have to be in some way. If you're going to be creating anything, you have to be able to drift off and access that part of yourself. So.
Well, that's certainly the case in the business, too, that you established. And let's talk a little bit about that as well. So that aside from the music, you have this business that as a groomsmith. And describe that business.
When I started my own business and had my own salon suite, I could do anything I wanted. So then it was, what do I want to do? And there were no limitations. And I've always wanted to do the men's grooming thing. I've always been attracted to this romantic idea of an old world barbershop or whatever that might be. And I do shaves now, like.
Oh, do you I was just talking about that. The actual shave with the razor?
Yes.
Boy.
And the brush and the straight razor and the lights, I kick the lights down so the lights are low. There's hot towels, there's shaving cream, there's all those smells and all that feel of whatever I think that old world experience would be like. Whether it was real or not, I don't know, but in my head. And the music and everything, it's super relaxing. It's kind of like a spa for a guy. But then my very next appointment could be putting foils into a woman's hair and giving her some pretty highlights. And so I do both those things, and I'm able to do it in my studio because I can switch it from, barbershop to hair salon in 30 seconds and be ready for my next person.
And talk about the studio, because I think that's kind of unique as well. Describe it, if you would.
There is Sola Salon Studios. It's all over the country, and now in Canada. They have 500 plus locations. So in each of those locations there are studios. So there's probably about 12,000 individual studios. And it's great. It makes you able to be a single hairdresser, massage therapist, or esthetician that has a clientele to go on their own and make it work.
And where's that located?
That's downtown by the fire station and the courthouse. It's on the second floor, 124 College Street, and it's right below the Asheville Music School.
And so that's where you operate out of, for the most part?
Yes.
But then you mentioned before that you also do weddings, and you do other things as well. If you'll take your stuff and go on the road.
I have a Craftsman tool bench on wheels, and my chair. You put a little hand truck underneath my chair, It's a really great, cool looking barber chair, very functional. Has an ashtray in the right hand side because it was first made in 1961, and they've been making it in Japan in the same factory that they've been making it ever since then. So it's a classic.
But I assume if people go to your shop, though, they don't hear Sweeney Todd playing, or you know.
No, I get a lot of jokes about that, but it would be so hard to murder somebody. I mean, physically hard. You just can't. You know, with the razor that I have, there's really very little chance. I mean, very, very strong chance that you'll get out of there alive.
You know, it's too bad, though, because ACT did Sweeney Todd a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It was great. And I could have seen you, I mean, it's a big role, but I could have seen you being in that leading role. Could you?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love watching any movie where there's a shaving scene. It's a lot of fun.
Well, you know, it's so funny you talking about this, because just last night I was looking at pictures with my wife, and we looked back to our trip in Italy, and it's one of the few times I had a beard.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, Holiday, in the middle of it, I said, I want to shave the beard. And so I wanted to find an old-fashioned barber.
Wow. Okay.
And they didn't have any. You know, the guy
Yeah.
brought out the clippers, and he
Yeah.
said, or the razor, and he said, no, we do modern shaving.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I haven't had an old-fashioned shave for, you know, how many people get an old-fashioned shave?
Word of mouth is the best way for me. I feel like I try and advertise things and do stuff, but it doesn't lead to a big wow. Now I got all this stuff, but slowly and surely I'm getting more and more of a regular clientele for it.
For a shave?
I'm happy to have you in.
Because it tempting me. I'm saying it was
Yeah.
just such an experience.
It's great.
It's like you've never had it before. You know, it's you can shave yourself all you want, but
Yeah.
to have a barber shave you, how long does that take?
About 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you do a haircut and a shave, it's called the Maharaja, because my father-in-law, who passed last year, he said, "Oh, Holiday, you make old Dickie boy feel like the Maharaja of Magador or whatever," and he would ramble on about 16 vessel virgins or something. I don't know what he was talking about exactly, but I named my haircut and shave the Maharaja after
I
him.
love it. Do people, when they come into your shop, do they have a choice of music they want to hear?
Not really. Well, sometimes. So mostly I play, jazz or Cuban music or blues or anything that kind of is great. Not background necessarily, but just complements the environment. But I do have one exception on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday at 1 o'clock, my piano player, Chuck Lichtenberger, comes in for a head shave. And he brings hibachi. And we call it Heavy Metal Hibachi Wednesdays because we go through all of our memories of heavy metal music and rock music that we listened to in the 80s and see if it's still good to us. So, of course, you play an album like Back in Black, and it's like, oh my God, this is awesome. But then you'd be like, let's listen to this Tesla album or something. And it's like, yeah, well, that, nah. Or you'd be surprised because a band like Dio sounds amazing, and you forgot that Dio was great. So, that's the only time that we veer off from the classic music and play metal.
It has me thinking, Holiday, that down the road I should come and bring my I have a new tripod here and an iPad and do a Facebook Live video of you at the shop.
Oh, yeah,
Because
I love that.
It just sounds like a fun experience. When people get their hair cut or styled,
Mm-hmm.
they have fun with you?
Oh, yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my goal. Yeah.
And so it's a whole experience. I love the Maharishi, thing
Yeah.
or something.
All that. And then I'm a unlicensed therapist in some ways too. I've got the title of therapist.
What a great title. Mm-hmm. So if folks want to find out more about you or specifically about getting a haircut or styled or groomed, what's the best bet?
My wedding site, it's easy to remember, holidaygrooms.com. And there's a place on the top that says book appointment. And you fill out all your stuff. That is for wedding inquiries. Do not do that. If you want to come to my salon, scroll to the very bottom of the page, and there's a little place that says Book Salon. You press Book Salon, and all my my online schedule is there, and it's super easy to just plug it in.
And do they also find out about music there too?
Music, you just type in my name, and something will come up.
it's going to come. Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Holiday, for being my guest this first half hour on the Blaine's World Show.
Thanks, Blaine.
A lot of fun. I love the music. You went so very nice. You sent me one of the CDs and good stuff.
Thank you for contributing to my Kickstarter in 2014.
I remember that. And also, thank you for all the 2 shows I've seen of yours. Look forward to seeing you in the future.
Me too. It was a pleasure. Thanks,
Okay,
Blaine.
buddy. Appreciate it. Okay, as Holiday works his way out of the studio, I'd like to thank the people who support the show, and that's support for the show is underwritten by the Grail Movie House, Asheville's alternative cinema. Grail Movie House is an independent, locally owned 3-screen cinema located in downtown Asheville. For current features, visit the Grail website at grailmoviehouse.com or the Grail's social media pages. In addition, as our next guest is working his way into the studio, I'd like to mention 2 upcoming shows in the Asheville area, and that's what I do from time to time. And the first thing, you have a whole couple days to see it, but it's going to be the Asheville Fringe Festival. That runs from January, I think it's the 9th to the 6th, or I think I have the dates, it's mid-January. And for more information about the exact dates, please click ashevillefringe.org. Just a real fun thing to get to. See a lot of people do a lot of different creative works. In addition, reasonably priced Babes Comedy Improv is going to be Friday, January 17th from 8 to 10 p.m., and it's going to be at Ambrose West. And you can find out more about that by going to eventbrite.com or look up Ambrose West or reasonably priced Babes Comedy Improv. It's next my pleasure to introduce my second guest of the Blaine's World Show, and he is Robert Dale Walker. And Robert is a director, producer, actor, you name it. Robert's, I guess, done a lot of things. He's also becoming a teacher. And welcome aboard, Robert.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Blaine.
Okay,
I feel like I've made it.
Exactly. Well, my pleasure, Robert. Also, by the way, you can wave to all your fans and friends on Facebook. Okay, it looks like we actually have a couple people watching us. So, hopefully Sherry's watching us now, you think?
Oh, I hope so.
Okay, well, anyway, Sherry is Robert's
She might be in the shower. I don't know.
Sherry is
Walking the dog.
Sherry is Robert's talented wife, and Robert Walker is an acting coach certified by the Meisner Approach to Acting. He is the co-founder of Rough Play Theater Production Company, which is producing Brilliant Traces along with the Asheville Community Theater at 35 Below. In addition to directing, Robert has been active in the local theater community. He recently played the role of Howie and ACT's production of Robert Hole. I like those.
Not Robert Hole. I mean, maybe, but Rabbit Hole.
It was a typo here.
Oh, okay. It's all about me. It's all about me.
Rabbit Hole. I love it. I like those. And it's good because I like those comedies. You know, I like when you play the light comic roles. I don't know if I've ever seen you play a light comic role. Do you?
Oh yeah.
I'll have to see you in something like that. Robert's active in the on-camera world where he's been seen in film, commercials, and television. And Robert, the question I ask everybody initially is, you grew up where?
In Newtown, Connecticut.
Newtown, Connecticut. And as a child, that's where you grew up as a kid?
Yeah, born and raised.
And
yeah.
When did you start getting into acting?
First grade, Peter Rabbit.
And you remember it?
I was Farmer McGregor.
I can't believe you remember it.
Oh, I remember it because I was nervous as heck the night before. I was one of the 2 lines, so it was Farmer McGregor and there was Peter Rabbit. And I got bumped up to the lead role the week before. And I remember telling my parents as I couldn't get to sleep, and I told my mother, I was like, I wish I was a radish, because all the other characters were just, in the garden as vegetables, and they had no lines.
My kind of role. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my intro, and then I did it throughout a little bit, and then 5th grade summer I did Little Abner, and then when I got into high school, I was into sports and doing that thing and band, and I was a musician and very busy guy, and then the head coach of the football team, his wife was the drama club director, and she asked me to audition for the dramatic version of Les Mis.
Wow.
Yeah, so I played Inspector Javert.
It reminds me of so many things, but one of them has to do with the fact, back to your first role in first grade. Did you folks videotape that?
No, because they weren't big videotapers.
But
no.
they were big in terms of encouraging you to be in theater?
Oh yeah, they showed up to all my
Yeah.
all my theater events and all my sports events. Even came out to Seattle when I was doing theater out there.
Because one of the things I want you to keep in the back of your mind as a future fundraiser for ACT, for example, or some other theater, but wouldn't it be great if everybody did their first role? In other words, so you didn't videotape it then, we could videotape it now, and you play that show, you did as a first grader.
Yeah.
And everybody would do 5 minutes of the first thing. We had our first guest, Holiday, talked about the first time he ever performed. Wouldn't that be a lot of fun?
It'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't know. All I remember about that role is being like looking for the rabbit, and is he under this one? No, he's not here. Is he there?
And you experienced too. I can't believe you did Les Mis because one of my favorite movies is the straight version of it as well, or the serious version. But in that particular show, that was there's your air part. That was quite a challenging part. Reminds me, there was a TV show last year. Do you remember that? They were doing drama productions. It was only on for 1 year. It was such a great show. They were putting on high school drama productions.
Oh.
They took the football player and made him a performer.
Oh,
Did you ever
wow.
see it?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it
no.
only lasted 1 year. It was just putting on, and they did the show, the controversial rock drama by kids, and anyway, it was just very controversial. And so for you to be taken off the football field to be on stage,
Yeah.
that was a shift.
It was a big shift.
Did you give
yeah.
up football?
No, I kept doing both. Yeah. I remember there was a big, we do football, the day before we did Saturday morning games, and Friday night we'd have big pasta meals to carb load. And my family was hosting it 1 year, but at the same time there was a theater conference that was going on in Boston. And so I had to choose like football or go to this theater program. So it was the husband was the coach, and his wife was, so I didn't know what to do, but I chose to go to the theater conference.
Because you were lucky they were both married, because
Yeah,
otherwise...
it can't be,
Because
I don't know what the arguments were at home, but
I want Robert, or something. So then that's big roles. You were acting in high school, got the bug. Did you continue in college?
yes. So I went to Indiana University, and I continued a little bit. So I saw all these stressed out actors, smoking cigarettes, auditions, and the sort of drama behind it. And so for the first couple of years, I wasn't doing that. I was also thinking about, I was going to go into TV and radio and telecommunications, but I didn't do that. But I eventually started taking acting classes and ended up with a minor in theater when I was in school.
And so
Yeah.
you went through college, and then did you go right into that, into performing, or doing this on a kind of full-time basis?
Yeah, so I also, in college, I was in a band, a pretty serious band. I'm a percussionist and a drummer as well.
Do you still play?
I still play, yeah. And so I was doing primarily music and focusing on that. And a lot of my friends, my theater friends, though, ended up going to Seattle. And so I eventually, in my mid-20s, made it out to Seattle with the idea that I'm gonna act, And I got caught in the music scene again. And so after a few years out in Seattle, I started studying and training again at this place called Freehold Studio Lab in Seattle. And that's where I was introduced to Meisner. I did a year-long progression and did an ensemble training intensive and got the certification and kept going, and then started doing theater in Seattle. Yeah.
Now, also, one of the things that I've always admired about you is that you certainly seem to keep busy in terms of, it's like today, it's what day is today, and then what are you doing, tomorrow? You're doing, it seems like about 17 different things simultaneously. Is that...
Sometimes it feels like that, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, especially, like, we'll segue that right into what you're doing now, and that's an exciting play you're actually directing at 35 Below at ACT, and talk a little bit about that.
Yes, it's called Brilliant Traces. I don't know, those people can see at home.
I can see it, or we can see it a little bit,
Yeah.
maybe.
This is a play by Cindy Lou Johnson that was first produced in 1989 at Circle Rep. And Joan Cusack and Kevin Anderson starred in it. It's a two-person play. And, the plot of it, you could probably fit on a postage stamp. But it's two characters. The female character, Rosanna, suddenly leaves the church where she's about to get married. specific trauma happens, and she drives and just starts driving and driving, and she ends up in Alaska. Her car breaks down in a snowstorm, in a whiteout. She walks and she sees this light, and it's a cabin where this man Henry Harry lives, who has escaped. As a lot of people go to Alaska are escaping something from their lives, but he's had his own specific trauma, and so they meet up and have to deal with each other, both repelling and attracting each other. And essentially, it's a story about connection, isolation, grief. Can we heal by hiding and not and shutting ourselves off from people? And this play tries to resolve that. That connection is greatly important for us to heal and connect with each other.
So now you're directing that play.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about some of the performers you have in that, or two performers you have in that.
I have two performers.
Right.
The aforementioned Sherry Azar, who's my wife, is in it, and Tom Trauger. Incidentally, the three of us were in the play a few years ago, God of Carnage,
Okay.
Hendersonville Little Theater, and that's where I met Tom. And then later, I ended up doing The Diary of Anne Frank, and Tom played Mr. Frank.
And I think that's the first time I saw Tom as an actor. Very, very impressive actor.
Yeah, so I've got two very talented performers.
When you chose by the way, did you choose the play, or was it chosen for you?
That is a tricky question, because I'll tell you about how this play came about. Sherry was studying, taking a class at NC Stage with Michael Macaulay, and she had a monologue from Brilliant Traces. This is 6 years ago, and she fell in love with the play. And she was doing this monologue, and I was helping, coach her on this monologue and working with it. And she got a bug in her. It's like she couldn't stop thinking about this play. And a little time would go by, and a couple years would go by. I think it was, it was over, and she'd mention it. And I started reading the play, and I started, falling in love with this play. The musicality, this fantasy realism that's in this play. And we started thinking about, what can we do with movement and music to help tell this story, And so it's been 6 years that this has been thought about and talked about doing, and we're finally doing it.
But when you came on board as director, did you kind of have your wife in mind for being the lead role?
She was always in mind. Yeah, and we auditioned the male role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And come up with Thomas, just a very impressive actor, I think, so it should be quite a show to see.
Yeah, and this is a wonderful role for both of them. But for Tom, it's I feel like it's in his wheelhouse, and I think people are going to enjoy seeing him in this character.
Now, we should mention that I think it opens this weekend.
It opens on Friday.
On Friday, so you still have plenty of time left to get it together.
Still plenty of time.
Yeah. So it opens Friday and runs, for the next 3 weekends?
Next 3 weekends. Friday and Saturday night at 7:30, and then Sunday matinees at 2:30.
Okay. And one of the cool things, I think, about seeing the show, and you can mention it, is where it's going to be. It's kind of almost a perfect environment, it would seem, for this particular show.
Yeah, so 35 Below, it's maybe 38 seats in there. At one time, probably 35. And I've done a couple other shows there, and pitched these projects. With the Actors Center, we did art, which we'll probably talk about later. And I directed This Is Our Youth a couple years ago. And selecting these shows, because it's such a small, intimate space where you feel like you're in the room with the people. So it's very important when you're doing a proposal there at Asheville Community Theater that when I'm thinking about the set. Where is it taking place? Will it work in this room? And so this particular play, it takes place in this little cabin in the middle of nowhere. This sort of claustrophobic feel of being isolated and stuck, I thought would blend really well with 35 Below.
Do you have a preference, directing or acting?
I don't have a preference. They are different. They're different worlds, different lands. So with an actor, all I got to worry essentially is about my work, what I'm doing. It's a creative exercise. It's almost solitary in a way. 'Cause you're always thinking about your character and you're working on your lines and you're there. And as a director, you've got different pieces that you're working with. But what I love about directing is being able to tell a story, and work with designers, working with lighting and sound, and I've got a musician in there. We're kind of composing this music together, and so you're balancing all these different things. You're also, it's nuance. You don't treat different actors bring different things to the tables, different psychologies, different emotional beings they bring to the role, and different nervous systems and different ways of responding. So, if I'm working with you and I'm working with your colleague over there, I might direct you differently than someone else, because I know kind of I can see where you are. I can see if you're struggling, or it's very nuanced, and I enjoy that, working with people and trying to get performances out of people.
So
The way I'm talking about it now, I feel like directing is very exciting, and being an acting teacher and doing scene study class for so long, it's something I'm very comfortable doing.
And this particular show you just mentioned has music also, or it's with music?
Yeah, so it's I don't know if it's been done before, but I hear a musicality, so it's being underscored. My friend Travis is underscoring this music, so there'll be live music in the show.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, and that's this. I'm remounting my theater company. It's called Rough Play Productions, which I established like 12 years ago. Our first play was Obama was just elected. In fact, we were in dress rehearsal and we found out about that. And so it was a while ago, and we did King Lear. And the mission statement of that company is to do theater that's simply, with a simple set, to engage the actors physically and have very truthful storytelling. I was really inspired by Peter Brook's The Empty Space, and have a musical component that helps tell the story. So using different elements, realism and music and movement to tell stories.
Well, it's kind of exciting. So when folks see this show, they'll see the two actors, and then there's also a musician there. Is he there every show?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of interesting. So it's a drama with music, I guess.
Yeah, it helps kind of, it's like an underscoring, like in film, where sometimes you may notice it and it'll be going on, but you won't notice it, because hopefully the idea is it'll be infused so seamlessly that you're just in the story and in the performance.
What does he play?
He's playing guitar.
And Travis, what's his last name?
Ortum? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Sorry, Travis.
Okay, well, anyway, something also to look forward to. And it's funny, you mentioned another aspect of that show. You said you like dealing with movement. And I think you're blessed, in having Shari, being in the show, because certainly
extraordinary mover.
It just, it adds to performance without, I guess, hitting you over the head with it. It's just the way she is.
Yes, and I like that. And there's certain moments within the production that have times where the movement is very specific, and there's different pictures that I'm trying to create. And just Sherry being a professional dancer is her background, and being able to work with her has been a joy.
And just listening to you, Robert, it seems too, I can just see where you're now getting into teaching, or you've been in teaching for a while. But talk a little bit about that too. Is something else now, in addition to acting, directing, running a theater company, producing a play, you're still in a band or doing music.
The drums are just down in the basement right now.
Oh,
it's a little, yeah.
Okay,
not actively in a band anymore.
But talk also about the teaching you're doing.
Yeah, so I believe you had my colleague Andrew Gallant on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he's from Chicago, had a Meisner studio for 10 years in Chicago, and we both studied with the same master teacher, Larry Silverberg, and went through the certification program at different times. And Larry contacted me. He's like, there's someone coming to town you might want to talk to. And after talking with him, both being teachers, and he's more of an experienced, been teaching this specific method for a long time. And I've incorporated it into my classes that I've been doing at the Actor Center, but it hasn't been specific Meisner, but I definitely bring that to my students. But to go through the progression, we're going to be doing the first basic Meisner progression starting in 2 weeks, and we have a free workshop that's going on this Saturday, and then the week after he's going to be doing a Monday class, and I'm going to be doing a Saturday morning class.
And I'm just anxious to see him perform also. I understand he's a very talented actor as well, so I'd love to see him on stage at some future time.
Oh, I'd like to too. And in fact, I brought Andrew in to just look at a rehearsal the other day, just to have eyes and get some director's feedback. It's
Now, the
been
course
very
you're going to be offering, you just mentioned, so you have a free upcoming session people can come to, and when's that going to be, and where?
That is at Attic Salt Theater Company, and people have already pre-registered, so it's already bulging. Class is full, like over 20 people, and that's going to be at 11 a.m.
This coming Saturday?
Yeah.
And again, information on that, best bet is to do what? To find that information?
The best way to find out that information is if you have questions, you can contact me directly at robertdalewalker@yahoo.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would be, so talk a little bit about that, the course itself, so that people can take the course. And is this for beginning actors or experienced actors, or who should be taking it?
It's open to anybody, so it's very useful for experienced actors to new actors to non-actors. And the reason why it's really great for non-actors is being aware of and putting your attention out in the world and responding authentically and really listening. In today's world where it's like hustle and bustle and we're on our phones and we're doing this, we very rarely just take the time just to be with each other. And I'm looking at you now and I'm sensing that you're listening to me, and I can react truthfully and authentically to you. And, so many times, and because this is your job right now, you're probably thinking, oh, what's the next question I want to ask Robert, and anticipating. But what this work really trains you to do is to really listen and act truthfully and authentically, which for the actor is a wonderful thing, because when you see actors engaging on the stage in a truthful way, moment to moment, and you forget they're acting, and it's just, you feel like you're a spy on the wall. It's the most magical thing, and we rarely get to see that really. And it's that's what we're trying to bring. That living truthfully under imaginary circumstances was Sandy's major tenet.
It would seem helpful skill for people in all walks of life. Whatever you're doing, teaching, selling, whatever, if people could all do that, it'd be a useful skill.
Great for salesmen, great for nurses, anybody where you're engaging and feel seen and listened to. Yeah.
So until you had told me about Andrew, and then now you today, I guess vaguely heard Meisner, and I think I told you I just saw that documentary the other day.
Yeah.
Had you been aware of that?
Yeah, I saw that documentary last month.
And what was that document? What was it again? Do you remember the name of it?
It's Boop.
Okay, but it's Betty Boop. No, but it's about a director who had also studied right under Meisner, or had worked with Meisner.
Yeah, it was a colleague, because he's like 94 right now. Or
He's
something
still
like
alive?
that. Yeah.
And he's still teaching?
Yeah, well, as this documentary came out, he was still teaching. People want to study with him. Yeah.
So that's another thing you're doing now, too, in terms of the scale of things you enjoy doing. Is teaching up there?
Oh, yeah, number one.
Yeah.
Number one.
Let's talk also about, then in the remaining time, I think we could spend another 2 hours on some of the shows I've seen you in, but I think when I see...
Let's schedule a 2 hour.
Well, no, but you laugh, but when I see you're going to be in a show, a compliment to you, seriously, I want to see it,
Well, thank
and
you.
then if Sherry's in a show, same thing too. Then the two of you together, you've done a bunch of things together, haven't you?
Yes, yeah, we've done God of Carnage, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof together as well. Yeah.
How do you enjoy working with Sherry in a play?
I love it. Directing her, she's just always working, and always as someone who's always been a performer, and being relatively new to acting, because she's been choreographing. She choreographs at ACT and been doing a lot of shows there. She's not choreographed you, but you've been in shows that she's been in. but she's always working on her craft, and maybe I push her a little more than I would others because I'm her husband, but she just goes to those places and is fearless.
How about when you perform with her?
Oh yeah,
Do you enjoy that?
I do. Yeah, I forget. I'm not in the moment. I'm not thinking about that we're husband and wife, but
The Meisner approach. You're in the moment.
I'm in the moment, and it's good to carpool. Especially when we're going to Hendersonville.
Do you run lines with each other?
Yes. Yeah.
Because interesting, I'm sure Mike Yao and Karen Covington Yao.
Yes.
And they're one of the few people who tell me they don't like running lines, with each other. That I thought everybody would do that, but they choose not to.
Oh.
Yeah. It just whatever it is. I guess people have different ways.
People
to
have
learn
different
lines.
ways to memorize, and where Sherry memorizes by putting it on tape. She'll do the other person's lines, and then she'll run the tape. She's in her car. She's doing it. Me, I get those index cards at CVS that are those, and I flip them. So I'll have a line, and so I'm getting the visual and saying it, and then flip to my next line is going to be the person's line. Flip the card.
What about they now have online or for your phone? They also have apps you can use for learning lines. How
I've
are
tried
they?
them. I went into them, but it's like I didn't. Partly the technology of it, I got stuck on, and so I think you can simply kind of do that with a voice memo on your phone. So the apps I haven't been really impressed with, but
Because
I'm still old school. I spent a lot of money on those flashcards.
Well, no, same thing. I love flashcards, but giving me an idea, I was telling you off the air that I'm going to be in a show at Magnetic Theater. I don't have a lot of lines, but I'm maybe I should take your course. I'm just worried about not so much the one thing I have to memorize, but also I have to interact with other people. Is that, I guess, something, it's technique you learn that you're waiting for others' lines, and then would the index cards help me on that?
Yeah. So this is also a good Meisner question. So Meisner had his students memorize in a rote way, and the reason is if you memorize in a certain way, you're going to have like a way of saying it. And so if you memorize it rote, just flatly, that if I give you something, you give me a certain energy, it's going to be different every night. And so my lines are going to sound different within the moment based on the meaning for me in that moment and what you're giving me. And so it'll be different every night.
So is that good or bad?
And so it's alive. That's a good thing.
Okay, gotcha.
That's a good thing.
So with the index card technique you mentioned, will that help?
It helps me. Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely helps me because you're using the visual and the sound together. But everyone has their own. Does your wife run lines with you?
She's willing to, but for some reason I don't want her to, but I should.
Yeah, I don't like running lines when I'm not totally off book with it because then I get corrected and I get frustrated, and then it's like, no, I'm just going to go do this by myself.
Well, that's exactly what she does. She'll criticize, and say, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, sure. I'd be like, do you want me to be like do you want me to correct you? And I'll be like, not right now,
But you gave me good advice, though, so maybe the technique is get the lines down, then you can work on getting them better.
Get them down. When you get them down, like you can be washing dishes, doing push-ups, I recommend doing lines when you're doing different things. So it's so in your body and so ingrained in you. Balancing a stick, juggling. Then you have them down cold.
So you mean I could learn juggling at the same time? I'll learn. Do you juggle?
Yeah. I very basically, yes. Yeah.
Robert, if folks want to see the show, let's just wrap up here a little bit. The show you're going to be coming up in, it's not coming up, it's starting this Friday night. I don't know if people can see it. But again, the name of the show is?
Brilliant Traces by Cindy Lou Johnson.
Okay, and that's going to be where?
At Asheville Community Theater at the 35 Below space.
Okay, and starting this weekend, I guess, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Open Friday night, yeah.
Okay, great. And if folks want to find out more about Robert Dale Walker, either about this show or more specifically your courses you're teaching, anything else, get in touch with you. Best bet is to do what?
Call me on my private cell number 206. No, you can Facebook message me and we'll talk old school.
Okay,
Yeah.
and people actually do that.
I'm trying to go back to that. I want to go back to actually talking.
Anyway, I'd
having
like
conversations.
to thank you for being my guest the second half hour on BLAINESWORLD Show. Also to Amy Prisnach, my producer, and to Zuzu Welsh, who provided the music you'll hear at the beginning of the show, you heard, and you'll hear at the end. Hope to see you next Wednesday here on WPVM, WPVMFM.org. And I'll see if we get this going. And I don't hear any music.
North Carolina. 103.7 on your dial, and globally at WPVMFM.org.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Benji Hire. Iran has carried out ballistic missile attacks on air bases housing American-led forces in Iraq in retaliation for the US killing General Qasem Soleimani. The more than a